and furiously declared, "This is me. That's my story." Perhaps most dear of all, a young woman at Southwestern University in Georgetown, Texas, presented me with a beautiful crystal necklace and matching pendant earrings that had belonged to her late mother, along with a letter that I treasure to this day. "Reading your book, I was able for the first time," she wrote, "to place the experiences of my life in a larger women's history. I have made this my life's goal, and I have never felt more content. Please wear these and remember all the lives you touched in Texas." I wanted to tell her that any tribute was not due to me, but to the women whose stories I had brought to light. This book's first publisher and true father, Roger Houghton, called it the greatest story never told. In truth, women have been active, competent, and important through all the ages of humanity, and it is devastating for us all if we do not understand this. The sheer vitality, courage, and horsepower of the characters I uncovered were a daily inspiration to me as I battled too with the relentless historical catalog of women's oppression and abuse. For I knew that a celebration of the world's famous feisty women was not enough. Any true women's history has to make sense of all that has happened to women and through them to men, to children, and to the world at large. The present reissue under this sporting new title and updated format is the first appearance in the United States of the text in full. Earlier editions pruned back the language and took out the humor on the grounds that the subject was too serious to joke about. But I truly believe that the subject is far too serious not to joke about, nor can history be true to life if it has no comic relief. I am delighted to see the text as I wrote it once again. The reissue of the book's original form is heartwarming proof to me that interest in the topic has not waned. On the contrary, people throughout the world have become more and more intrigued by the lost Atlantis of women's history, the forgotten story of so many lives. Why women's history? Yet some would say, why women's history at all? Surely men and women have always shared a world and suffered together all its rights and wrongs. It is a common belief that whatever the situation, both sexes faced it alike. But the male peasant, however cruelly oppressed, always had the right to beat his wife. The black slave had to labor for the white master by day, but he did not have to service him by night as well. This grim pattern continues to this day, with women bearing an extra ration of pain and misery whatever the circumstances, as the sufferings of the women of war-torn Eastern Europe will testify. While their men fought and died, wholesale and systematic rape, often accompanied by the same torture and death that the men suffered, was a fate only women had to endure. Women's history springs from moments of recognition such as this, and the awareness of the difference is still very new. Only in our time have historians begun to look at the historical experience of men and women separately, and to acknowledge that for most of our human past, women's interests have been opposed to those of men. Women's interests have been opposed by them, too. Men have not willingly extended to women the rights and freedoms they have claimed for themselves. As a result, historical advances have tended to be men-only affairs. When history concentrates solely on one half of the human race, any alternative truth or reality is lost. Men dominate history because they write it, and their accounts of active, brave, clever, or aggressive females constantly tend to sentimentalize, to mythologize, or to pull women back to some perceived norm. As a result, much of the so-called historical record is simply untrue. For example, Joan of Arc was burned not for heresy, but for wearing men's clothes, as were other women right up to the 18th century. Florence Nightingale was never called the Lady with the Lamp, but the Lady with the Hammer, an image deftly readjusted by the war reporter of the Times, since it was far too coarse for the folks back home. Far from gliding about the hospital with her lamp aloft, Nightingale earned her nickname through a ferocious attack on a locked storeroom when a military commander refused to give her the medical supplies she needed.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.